I'm standing in front of a Raiffeisen bank, and I just tried to transfer money on Skype, and so I'm not able to transfer money onto Skype because it's owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft is one of the worst companies to deal with. What China and what Russia can do is they can make a Skype clone, and they can offer the same things that Skype does, because Skype has been throttling me. And that may sound weird with people that haven't dealt with security issues for decades like me, but Skype has been throttling me. And I actually have a video that shows how Skype throttles me personally, which can be done. And I tried to, over and over, I spent 25 minutes in here trying to get Skype to take care of my card. And it's March 9th, and these sanctions go into effect where I can't transfer money from my Visa to Skype. And so what I suggest that all Russians do is don't blame President Putin for not being able to buy something online overseas. This is the United States that did this. This is Visa and MasterCard choosing to do this, and this is sanctions by the United States. I also want to mention Namecheap. At Namecheap, N-A-M-E, cheap.com. I just received an email from them that they will not help Russians, and that if I'm a Russian citizen, they will not help me. And so they're nationalistic, xenophobic. Namecheap.com. And see what the United States does. It's called the Shock Doctrine. It started in 1973, September 11th, 1973. That was the first September 11th. And what happened was Henry Kissinger, who was working for the Nixon administration, they walked into I need to watch my bike. Henry Kissinger visited with Pinochet a day before the revolution. And on September 11th, 1973, Allende, who was the democratically elected socialist leader, was overthrown by Pinochet. And Nixon had earlier said to a CIA advisor, I think it was a CIA advisor, he said, let's make the economy scream. And that's when the Shock Doctrine started. It's by Naomi Klein. And so there's terrorism, and then there's economic terrorism. What the United States has done is both. It's done terrorism by the CIA, and it's done terrorism by economic terrorism. And the Shock Doctrine is economic terrorism. Don't believe me? Watch the video on YouTube. Don't believe me? Read Naomi Klein's book. So what the United States is doing, and it did in 1991, is that the Soviet Union was the second richest country in the world. It was a superpower. And then what happened was that the United States supported Yeltsin instead of Gorbachev. Gorbachev trusted the United States. And what happened was the United States supported Yeltsin, and it broke up the Soviet Union into 12 or 13 parts. I don't recall now, the 13 different republics. And then what they did is that Yeltsin was a puppet, a marionette of the United States. And then what happened is that they started with some of the oligarchs, is they started to break apart the country, and they started to break apart all of the different. They started to break apart the Soviet system, and then what happened was the oligarchs. It was chaos, just like it was in Chile, and just like it was in so many other countries, because of sanctions, because of economic sanctions. And what happened was that the crime was really, really super bad here, super bad. I've heard so many stories of crime lords and people losing their money like overnight. And I actually dated somebody in D.C. whose wife was whose mother actually dated a crime lord that was in the hospital. And there were 4 people that owned one of the cities that she was in. Basically, the United States destroyed Russia. And all of the money, the oligarchs were scared because of the of the crime here. And it was a very stable society. It was a poor society before in the Soviet Union. And it was also an evil society. I want to mention that. It was actually an evil society, especially with Stalin. But what happened was that all the money fled to London, especially. Read the book Londongrad. It's a brilliant book. It talks about how all the money fled to Britain, to UK, which is America's little puppet. It's basically, it's not puppet, but little brother, basically. The UK is. And so all the money that from Russia and the Soviet Union fled to America. And so what happened is that President Yeltsin in 1991, he won the election, correct? And so in 1991, sorry, Esvanita. So in 1991, he lost, he took over. And then in 1993, he bombed the White House, which is right across the street from the current U.S. Embassy. He actually launched tanks and tank shells into the White House, and hundreds of people died. And the West, NATO, Germany, Britain, all of the NATO countries praised Yeltsin, and they supported the death of hundreds of people. And so then what happened after that was in 1996 there was an election, and the communists were going to win because people were tired of Shock Doctrine. And then what happened is the Americans came in and they rigged the election. They spent millions of dollars, billions, like hundreds of millions of dollars, marketers, to get Yeltsin reelected. Yeltsin would go around drunk to campaigns and say that his pockets were full of money. And so what happened in 1996? In 1996, the election was won. And then in 1997, America and NATO, the militaristic country of NATO, decided to bomb Yugoslavia. And that is when Yeltsin realized, and I just found this out from people that I talked to the past couple of days, this is when Yeltsin realized that America was going to turn on him too. And despite NATO, the UN saying not to bomb Yugoslavia, they did anyway, and they destroyed Yugoslavia. 250 days of bombing, and it wasn't anything like the Ukrainian invasion now. They bombed hospitals, they bombed schools, they bombed everything. And they just bombed just the same as Iraq, the same as Syria, the same as the puppet regime of Saudi Arabia with the proxy war in Yemen. They destroyed the country. Now, I've heard this and I haven't confirmed it. I haven't checked the National Archives, but according to somebody that I talked to a couple of days ago, is that Yeltsin asked Bill Clinton to please stop the war. And Yeltsin and Bill Clinton says, "I'm sorry, I can't." And then what happened is that later, Yeltsin told Bill Clinton, "I have found a new replacement, and he's a Democrat, but he's a strong one." And that Democrat was President Putin. When President Putin became president, 2/3 of the country was in absolute poverty. 2/3 of the country, 143 million, less at that time, were in poverty. That is what America did to Russia, and that is what America is trying to do again to Russia. So don't blame President Putin for the economic warfare, because it is squarely on NATO and Russia. They're the ones that have pushed Russia into a corner. They promised Gorbachev, Jim Baker, he promised verbally that they would not expand. If Germany reunited, they would not expand 1 inch. And that's exactly what they've done. And now Russia is surrounded. And just as I said in my previous video in front of the Moscow embassy, you know, if you poke a dragon, if you push a dragon and you push a bear, China and Russia, they're gonna push back. MoscowAmerican.com, WhyDon'tRussiansSmile.com. Jeff Young is running for 2022. He's running for Congress against an ignorant neocon named Andy Barr. I'd suggest that you support his campaign. Any Americans that are listening to this, Tulsi Gabbard ran in 2020. The establishment didn't like her, and they didn't like her anti-war stance. She's going to probably run in 2022. I'm here to help Americans. I'm here for peace. And I'm tired of the endless wars. The only hope that America has is to end the endless wars and bring our troops home. God bless you, and God bless America.